shall I just go? Or?
Go for it.
My name is Caleb Burhans, and I am a composer, multi-instrumentalist, and singer. I have my debut album coming out July 30th on Cantaloupe Music, and it is called Evensong. It features 3 groups that I've worked with over the past decade, one being my group Alarmal Sound, the other being the Trinity Wall Street Choir, where I sang for 7 years and where my wife still sings. And the other group is the Cello Ensemble, which are all colleagues of mine from Eastman. I would say that a lot of different styles end up in my music since I grew up with a very eclectic taste. I started music as a boy soprano when I was 9, and then I began violin lessons when I was 10, and then piano when I was 11, and I think electric bass when I was 12. I definitely feel like my time as a singer has affected the way I write music, but also like my involvement playing in rock bands and things like that while I was growing up, and also playing in orchestra. I think they all kind of feed into this river, which becomes what I'm writing. When I was growing up, I was like any other young composer, I was trying a million different styles, almost all at once in every piece kind of thing. And I just hit a wall, in essence, like kind of what happens to a lot of undergraduate composers when they just try a bunch of things out and nothing's really sticking. So I took some time off and kind of reevaluated what it was that I wanted my music to do for me. I made a very conscious decision when I was about 21, 22 to start writing music that I actually enjoyed listening to, that I felt could, like talk to somebody else, like emotionally speaking, and just things at the end of the day that I wanted to hear. And that's where this music comes from. Well, Evensong is a service that takes place in, generally it's in the Episcopal or Anglican church, and I sang in the Episcopal church for 20 years. I just love that service quite a bit, and when I was in my early 20s, I wrote Magnificat and Nunc Dimittis setting, which are usually the bookends musically for the Evensong service. And I decided to actually make them the bookends of this entire album and kind of put this in a bit of a Christian light of sorts. Maybe not. For me, I'm thinking about this title in a way that I got baptized late in my life, and I grew up in a family without much religion in it. My mother had a rebirth in faith when I was about 10 or so, and that's when I started singing in choir. And I've never been decidedly Christian necessarily, even though I am baptized. But at the same time, I do appreciate what a lot of religion can give to a person. I appreciate the positive side of that. And at the same time, it's always been kind of confusing for me. And so I've always felt pretty agnostic about things, except for maybe Holy Week, then it becomes a little bit more real. But so that title, I think, really reflects upon this idea of being lost, and within that, not entirely sure-footed. Every piece I write is extremely different in terms of the way I come up with material and approach making the piece itself. So on this album you have things like the choral works, which generally I was either sitting at a piano working on them like that, or else I was not even using an instrument and just kind of thinking about vocal lines and text overlay. And then there are things like the Things Left Unsaid, and Oh Ye of Little Faith, where I was definitely using my looping pedal and like guitar and things along those lines. So I'm not trying to reinvent anything for sure. I'm just being very kind of pragmatic about it in my own way that I've thought about music for years. Like anybody else, I think all my ideas come from everything it is I've listened to growing up, and our generation is fortunate in the fact that We have all these recordings at our fingertips, and so we're saturated with a lot of things, but that also means that styles are going to start breaking down because there is so much influence of everything constantly. A few years ago, there is a term made up to fit the genre of music that I'm writing and that a lot of my friends are writing, and a lot of us really don't like it, including myself. And that term is either indie classical or alt classical. And I decided to embrace it head on since I don't like it so much, only because I feel it doesn't describe what our music is like. I write very different music from somebody like David Little or Nico Muhly or Judd Greenstein, and yet we're all put under the same umbrella because we all went to a conservatory and we listened to Radiohead and Bjork and things like that growing up, and we're all influenced by all these outside things. And I've decided to just go one step further and say I write emo classical. So that at least that way you have an idea of what you might be listening to. And I mean, growing up I was really influenced by post-rock and bands like that, but at the same time, with what I'm doing with my music, it comes directly from me, and I need it to feel better as a person. And so it's definitely extremely emotive, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm doing.